Following on from the last video, the rear suspension is back in. Bolting the subframe in on these is pretty bloody easy really, because thankfully the whole thing's very well balanced front to back and left to right, so you can literally pull it on a jack under the diff and it will balance to get it up in the air, to get it sitting in place. So now that's in, it's time to get on with other stuff. So I reckon the engine. The turbo is back off the engine because we've had second thoughts about how it's going to be mounted, mostly because we're struggling to work out a good place to put the wastegate. So now we're probably going to go back to the original plan, which is a small link pipe from there to maybe here or so, to allow room for the gate, because we was going to put it like there off the turbo, but in reality there's not really enough room, because at the back we're lacking room due to where the downpipe's going to go. Forward and left we're lacking room because of where the oil filter is and where the boost pipes go and everything, so it's kind of struggling. But with a link pipe it opens a lot of opportunities, so yeah, we're just going to do that. This is a cam that came in the Volvo boat engine. It's a V cam actually, which is, you know, it's one of the better, one of the wilder standard Volvo cams. Still nothing crazy, but yeah, it's one of the better ones. Same one as I got in my Volvo 940, but I don't need that anymore because I got something a lot better. Right, I've got most of the parts for the head here. I've got KL Racing head studs, KL Racing double valve springs and the suitable retainers to go with it, and a KL Racing stage 5, T5, whatever you want to call it, cam, which is proper Larry, 300 degree duration, and I think it's about 12.5 mil lift. The only thing I haven't got is the valve shims. The reason is they recommend 4 mil, but I don't strictly think that's correct, so I want to measure it before I order it. The reason I don't think it's correct is because the way a lot of these aftermarket cams get a higher lift is by making the base circle a lot shorter, which is exactly what this is. And this base circle, as in the bottom of the lobe, is that much smaller that the current gap, I don't know if you can see there, is massive. Right, I've been doing some measuring, both with a stack of feeler gauges and with this 3 mil thick washer that Thomas kindly just machined for me. And basically the current clearances are between 3.7, well 3.66 if you wanted to be super exact. When I say 3.7 and 4, kind of 3.9, 3.7 and 3.9 we'd say. What this should be is 0.35 to 0.4. So I'm going to need way thicker shims than what's in it. So now I've got to take the cam back out and measure these shims, and then with some basic maths I can work out what size shims I really need. Okay, slight update to this, because it turns out I was a bit confused by the terminology of all this shit. Basically, in my head, I presumed these shims were what was changed, and basically when people called them lash caps, I just thought this was just a different terminology for them. No, that was me being very wrong. Turns out lash caps are things that sit on top of the valves there. They don't come with them as standard. It's like an aftermarket addition for some cars. So yeah, you will add caps on there which raises the height, and they sit onto there, onto the bucket, and job done. Right, it's the next day from the previous bit of this video, and yet again I've learned a bit more about all this fucking, you know, shims and lash caps and, you know, all this stuff, and my plans have changed a little bit again. Basically, last night I thought, screw it, I'm gonna get some 4mm lash caps, which is what the people recommended. Well, the Swedish company that makes a cam recommends, and then machine down the shims a little bit as and when I need to. So okay, fair enough. Then I went to order some 4mm lash caps, and the UK supplier was out of stock. So, oh great, no idea when they would get any more, but that's no good. So they did have 3.5mm in stock, which are probably fine for some of the ones, some of the valves, but they are a bit small for the others. Because, oh shit. And then I had a quick look on eBay, and some Lancia engines and stuff use these same caps, or the shims, sorry. And lo and behold, there's every thickness under the sun available of these shims, from way thinner to way thicker. So basically, I'm going to, well, I've ordered the 3.5mm shims, the 3.5mm lash caps, sorry. And then I'm going to dismantle the head now, do the porting and stuff, put it all back together, and then install the 3.5mm lash caps, and then do the measuring from there. What Thomas said we'll probably do, he reckons his best bet, and I agree, is to just get a load of shims that are ever so slightly too big, and then machine them down perfectly in the lathe to be the exact size. Because that'll be, you know, that's going to take, he said, maybe an hour, because there's only 8 of them, and it allows us to get the perfect valve clearances, rather than relying on the accuracy or not of the shims, you know, the listing on eBay. Because all well and good them saying it's, you know, 5.15mm, but how right are they? Whereas we can make it right. So Thomas said just get them like slightly too thick, and we'll take them down a bit. So that is the plan. But for now, for today, I am basically stripping the head down and cracking on with the porting. Right, that's the 2.5 litre boat engine's head all stripped down. That's all the components. In all honesty, these are so easy to work on. I took out, you know, I dismantled it and took out all the valves within the space of about 10 minutes. And yeah, all I've done since is give the combustion chambers a quick clean to have a look at them. They look pretty much mint, to be honest. And then got a Stanley blade to get rid of all the gasket material, and now it's lovely, super smooth. So all that's really left now is to port it, I suppose. Obviously, if you'd have seen my video on my Volvo, you'd have seen I properly went to town on that. I basically made the heads into, well, I totally removed the squish chambers, really. It was pretty much a Hemi head by the time I was done. But for what I'm aiming for on this engine, I won't be doing that. On this engine, I want to keep it high compression, and these heads, this being a 531 head, is a better design than the 530 head anyway. And being I'm not going to be running as much boost, at least not in the current spec, I don't need, well, removing the squish areas and making it more of a Hemi shape less of an advantage. If anything, it might be a disadvantage now. So I'm not doing it. But what I am going to do is I'm going to smooth off all of this, all of these sharp edges, because they are genuinely quite sharp. Removing all sharp edges because stuff like that promotes debt. And I'm going to de-shroud the valves a little. First little bit done. I thought I'd show you it now, even though it's barely began, just to show the difference. yeah, I'm not going to go to town on the combustion chambers, but you can hopefully see the difference here. See the sharp edges. I'm basically smoothing them off. So smooth edges. That is the main goal for the combustion chambers on this. Nothing crazy. Just getting rid of the sharp edges. I can't go too much here because the gasket goes there anyway. So I'm going to do a little bit of, you know, smoothing of the general combustion chamber anyway, but the main thing is to get rid of those sharp casting edges, which if anything are almost like a lip due to how it's machined, whereas, you know, this is lovely and smooth. So yeah, I'm not going to go, I mean, on this one I can feel it, especially, whether you can see it or not, I don't know, but you can almost like hold your nail on the lip, whereas this is exactly the opposite. So yeah, very minor combustion chamber modifications on this one compared to my last head, but that's because I've got a different goal for this one. Thankfully as well, this is a damn sight less work. That's a rough finish of the first inlet port done, and the amount of meat I just took off then was pretty mental. How well you can see that I don't know, but here there's a massive amount of material. Let me see if the light shows it. Huge amount of material all down there. This all gone. Right from looking at it, it was obvious that it would flow a lot better if that was gone, but obviously I don't know where the waterways are inside this head, and obviously you don't want to break through into one of the waterways, because then the head needs repairing, or it's maybe scrap. But I remember one of the Scandinavian guys saying to me that you can keep porting the inlet ports until the exhaust valve can touch the valve stem, and I will show you. This is standard. I mean, you can probably see the difference already. It's pretty massive, but as standard, goes in that far, not even close. My one now, it genuinely touches the valve stem. So yeah, that's way more than I would have ever dared, obviously not knowing how far you can go on these. But I trusted the experience of the Scandinavian guys who knew way more than I ever will about these things, and they were right. So yeah, I'm still like, I've got no doubt this inlet ports will flow amazing, but I wish I could do more to the exhaust ports, but there's really nothing else I can do. Like, barring what I've done, I don't think enlarging them anymore is going to make any difference. And to be honest, they're getting close to on the one side of the wall especially, to where the head bolts go through. So I don't want to, you know, I don't want to do any more. I'm a bit reluctant to do as much as I have. I only know it's okay because I did it to one, and I've been matching the other one, again, by using this as a measuring stick, to that. But here's those inlet ports from another angle. You can probably see again that versus that. Literally half the amount. Technically, there is more you can take away there, but I think I'm at diminishing gains right now. So, although a little bit more will be taken away once I start using the porting rolls rather than the die grinder, you know, it's not going to be significant from then on, but you can see the difference. A totally different port shape. I've done my first rough cut, purely die grinder, no smoothing at all yet, of the first exhaust port, so you can see the difference between the two. The blue is, you know, my marking from where the gasket goes, and this is afterwards. But to be honest, the outer bit isn't the important bit anyway. It's further in where it counts. Looking at the original, you can see that the port goes in, then suddenly just kind of stops abruptly and pretty much goes 90° into a circle. I mean, I don't know if I can, that there is like a 90° drop from, you know, there's no curving down, it just straight down to the valve. It's a bit shit, and you can see where it necks in as well. Look at along that bit there on both sides, it neck, you know, whereas on mine it smoothly tapers now down to the valve. As you can see there's no step, unlike that one. This one, look, you see the quite substantial step. Here there is no step, and it smoothly tapers from, you know, the main port size into the bowl size, unlike that. So this, once smoothed out, is probably absolutely fine. I'm still tempted to go more, but I don't know if more is just wasting my time. I gotta decide really. Well, I fucked up. Yeah, I got way too fucking cocky on the porting, and I don't know if you can see it, but I slightly broke through the fucking port on that cylinder. My bad, because I wasn't concentrating and kind of took a big chunk out of it. I mean, they're all fairly close to that point, but they're all fine. But that one, I wasn't concentrating. I got way too cocky and ground a hole in it. It's already an engine that's been ahead anyway, that's been welded up in the past. It's had a whole new exhaust port welded on this, as you can see. You know, it's not the greatest head in the world, but it's still a 531 head in decent condition. So I'd much rather not done it. But more to the point, you know, when I got the engine, the 531 head come on it was just a bonus. It was like, all right, it's not knackered, I can use it, you know, because I was always planning just to use a 530 head. What's pissed me off, and it's, you know, I can only be pissed off with myself, but what's pissed me off is obviously I've spent pretty much a full day porting this, and now I've ballsed it up right near the end. So yeah, tomorrow Thomas is going to have a go. Tomorrow morning I'm going to pick Thomas up super early, and we're going to go to the workshop, and before he starts his proper work, he's going to see if he can magically fix that. Bzzzt, like so. Bzzzt. Whether that's possible, we will see. If it's not, then I'm going to one of my many 530 heads, and I'm going to do a similar job to what I did on the original one that's on the Volvo, as in port the inlet and exhaust ports, but don't go fucking too crazy on it. Sort the bowls out, because the bowls are shit on the 530 ones especially. And more to the point, unlike this one, modify the combustion chambers again to make it more of a Hemi shape, get rid of the squish pads, which should drop the compression down a bit. It'll still only be like, it'll probably go down to about 8.5 to 1 from the current 9.5 or so, whatever it is. It knock it down about a point. So it'll still be fairly high comp, and I'll just, you know, I'll make up for that with a little bit more boost than I was planning to. To be honest, that setup will have more torque than this setup anyway. But this setup, I kind of like the idea of running as much NA power as possible, and it, you know, and just a little tickle of boost. I know it's totally against what I normally do, but yeah, it's kind of what I had in mind for this setup. But it may or may not happen now. That's going to depend on what Thomas can do to that in the morning. But at the least I'll do is show you a comparison of this head, the ports, versus the 530 head. The exhaust ports are identical. It's the inlet ports that make the difference. The inlet ports are wildly bigger on this, but the thing is, it's the exhaust ports that's the problem on these. So it's like, I'm not entirely convinced that doing all the work I have to the inlet port really makes that much fucking difference, I must admit, on a turbo engine anyway. But yeah, and I don't mind the shape of the standard bowls, especially on the inlet ports on a 530 head's terrible. But you can fix that. But 530 head, I mean, this as standard is less round than this. A 530 head's round like this is standard, but way smaller. But I don't really think that's the big issue. It's mostly the bowls that need fixing. But yeah, we will see. If Thomas can't fix this, then fuck it. You know, it's time for a do the original plan. It's the same as the even the bottom end. Yeah, I'm using a 2.5, but that wasn't the original plan, was it? And imagine if, for whatever reason, I ended up wrecking both my 2.5 bottom ends I've got. I'd happily go back to a 2 litre and make it more of a revvy fucking screamer than a torque monster. I never ever intended to be a 2.5. It's just what happened to appear in front of me. And obviously, yeah, it's cool, but it's not needed. I mean, it's going in a cart weighs fucking nothing. So, yeah, that's the current update. Shit news, but I'm not that arsed, I must admit. When it first happened, I was really fucked off because I just spent a few hours porting it. Now the more I think about it, the less I give a shit. So, yeah, we'll see.